I'm Thomas K. Carpenter, and this is Ask Me Anything, the book edition. So recently in newsletter, we asked for your questions about anything book or games related. We got quite a few questions, so decided to do two videos. The first one will be about books. The second one will be about games. So let's get right to it. The first question is, what inspired you to create the Hundred Halls universe, and how has it evolved over the years? So for my early publishing career, I was skipping around a lot of genres. My first series was a cyberpunk dystopia. My second series, Gamers, was a YA dystopia. The third one was a historical mystery / alt history, and then I moved to a historical fantasy series. And while I love each one of these series for what they did, moving from genre to genre presents a couple of problems. I mean, from a writer point of view, it's a lot of fun delving into a new area, like, with the historical fiction, lots of fun reading and things like that. But from a fan perspective, when I move from genre to genre, some people don't read those genres. Now, occasionally there are people that will, like to read everything you've written, but it definitely makes it much harder to have a career, cohesive career. So I wanted to kind of stick with one genre, and I really wanted to tackle a much larger universe. I really like the idea of delving into a series for a long period of time. But one of the challenges with that, which I found when writing a 7-book series with the Alexandrian Saga, an 8-book series with the Dashkova memoirs, is that as you get deeper into the books with those same characters, with those same settings, it becomes harder and harder to make it interesting and make it an enjoyable read. And so in the idea of the 100 Halls, I wanted to tackle something that I was going to be able to write for many years without running into that problem of the series, kind of trailing off. By structuring it the way we did, then it made it easier for me with, one series with each hall, keeping them to the 5 years, except for, the season enders or some standalones. 5 books is a great arc to tell a story in. And I think that has been very beneficial because I have not been bored at all within writing this. It has been a ton of fun to explore new aspects. Here's a new realm, here's a new hall, here's a new type of magic, here is a little bit different style of storytelling. So that's why the 100 Halls are like they are, for those various reasons. And I hope you're enjoying them. Question 2, how do you balance writing multiple series in the 100 Halls universe while maintaining a cohesive storyline across them? Good question. My biggest tool is Excel. I have a very large Excel spreadsheet with dozens of tabs that each, there's at least one hall per tab, or one tab per hall. There are timeline tabs, there are magic tabs, there are creature tabs. That is probably my biggest tool, is using that Excel spreadsheet, and I try to keep track of everything I can in there. What are all the different students from that hall? What year are they? What are the professors? What are the classes they teach? I have the halls, the wards of the city. It's very helpful, actually. You can see it back here. I have the big giant version of the city Invictus with all the wards. It's a nice visual. Before, I just had it written on paper. Now it's just nice to look up there and say, oh yeah, Medal of Nocturne is here, or, the Museum of Magical Artifacts is in this location. That's probably the biggest tool, is Excel. The other thing is, I think I'm used to world building from roleplay games, so I'm used to keeping all of those things in my head. Though it does, require me to go back to a different book and look up what was somebody's eye color, what was somebody's hair color, who were the other people in this location. And the other big thing I have is I have some fantastic beta readers and a first reader in my wife who are great at finding those things that I may have missed or forgotten about, or questions. What happened to this? They didn't remember it that way. And those are always a good check on the things that I remember. Yeah, even my editor has been with me, Tamara, from the very beginning of the 100 Halls. So she's also a great resource and remembers all those things. Question number 3, what was the inspiration behind Forging a Legacy, and how does it fit within the broader 100 Halls series? So Forging a Legacy is a standalone story involving the Middleham Nocturne Hall. And the two origins of that name, actually, the first part is my background is I'm a metallurgical engineer. I worked in foundries for 26 years. I've done a lot of casting. It's a lot of fun. I love it's an old school science and art. And so when I made the halls, I definitely wanted to have a hall related to, the foundry science, but with magic. And interestingly enough, the second half of the name, Nocturne, we played the massive multiplayer game EverQuest back in the 90s. There was a guild on our server called Coterie Nocturne. And I just thought that was a cool name. And so Coterie ended up with Coterie of Mages, and Nocturne ended up in Middleham Nocturne. Yeah, so that's the basic idea of where that hall came from. The actual story is a lot different than I've written a lot of other stuff, because I was releasing it, it just actually came out today. To buy the full thing, I've been releasing it episode by episode. And for the majority of the time that I've been releasing it, I have been writing it just barely ahead of when we've been releasing it. And rather than having a big giant plan in mind, like I do most of my novels, I wanted to keep this one more fresh. And one of the things that created is there tends to be a very forward motion too, because this story happens in a short amount of time, unlike most novels in the 100 Halls, which occur over the full course of a year, which made it quite a bit different. And I like how it turned out. I really loved Claire and all the things that go on, and I hope you guys do too. Question number 5. With over 65 titles published, how do you stay motivated and maintain creativity across so many different projects? One, I love to write. I mean, it is, getting started sometimes in the morning is hard. But once I'm into, a few sentences, like I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time. So staying motivated has never been an issue. I think on the creativity side, I've learned a lot of tools and techniques to help me over the years. For one, I read a lot. I play a lot of RPGs. I talk to a lot of other writers. So I think those kind of things give you good ideas on what to do. And then, when it comes to each hall or each novel, I spend a lot of time hiking, talking about it with Rachel. We'll go on a hike and I'll bring up ideas. She's great at asking me questions to pull bits of it, threads of it out. I have a group of other writers I meet with pretty regularly, and sometimes in person. We talk about story, and I'll bring up, a new series in the 100 Halls, and they'll get feedback. I mean, the 100 Halls wouldn't be as it is without their feedback. The original version was a bit different than, what we see now. And even the whole 100 Halls aspect didn't come about until that original piece was just going to be a bit, bit more, one big school with lots of different things rather than breaking up to the various halls. And then, I like, having that new series every year, and getting to write about a new haul. That's part of the fun because I get to, okay, who are the new characters? What kind of different story am I going to tell? I'm in book 2 of the next series after Aura Healers. I'm not gonna tell you guys just yet. I got to maintain some suspense there, but I'm already have thoughts of the next series after that. And on top of that, I'll have to write the season 2 trilogy, which I've been, since beginning of season 2, I've been having that in the back of my mind, and I'm going to have to start figuring that out. And honestly, that's a lot of fun. Is working through all that. And if I get stuck on this stuff, I have the games I'm working on. There's a lot of other things I can do to maintain that. So, what advice would you give to aspiring indie authors who want to build their own expansive worlds like you have with the 100 Halls? I think the biggest thing is, is you gotta constantly be feeding your brain with new inputs and things. Read in other genres, read nonfiction. Shows can be an inspiration. In any of those things, role play games, your own personal campaign. There are actually a number of big TV series or big book series that actually got their start as a role play game. The Expanse, which ended up being a fantastic show. That was a space-based RPG that they ended up turning into a story. So there are a lot of ways to get to inspiration, but you can't do it by just sitting and staring at a blank wall. You kind of have to fill your mind with new stuff, and then let that work on it over time. And then the other thing I would say is, don't be afraid to fail. Is a lot of times my series, like even the very beginning, the first, Trials of Magic was a completely different book that I rewrote many times because I knew they weren't right. And I knew it wasn't doing what I want. But through those iterations and writing it and throwing it away and writing it and throwing it away, I was able to get to a point where I'm like, okay, this is what I wanted to do. I said it in the newsletter for Aura Healers. I wrote a completely different book last summer, a year and a half ago. It was a failure and I had to throw it away, but it taught me the things I needed to know to make Aura Healers work. And once I started writing, once I kind of redone everything and started on Half Pint Hex, it came out so quickly. It came out really fast and I had a lot of fun, but that wouldn't have happened without the struggle of the novel that will never see the light of day. But that's okay because it didn't work, but our Half Pint Hex did. So, well, it looks like that is it for my questions. If you watch this and you have any other questions, please send them along. And like I said, we'll do another one, another AMA about games sometime pretty soon. And hope you're all doing well and happy reading. Bye.